What are you doing here? Wu Suowei's voice was flat, but there was still a flicker of defiance in his eyes. Cheng stood by the door, his posture rigid, arms crossed over his chest. His tone was as cold as ice. Came to see your pathetic state. The words weren't just sharp, they were meant to wound. Wu Suowei exhaled through his nose and looked away, hiding the slight tremble in his fingers. Wang Shuo's flight is today. If you don't hurry, you won't make it. He said it like he didn't care. Like it didn't matter, but it did. It always had. Cheng didn't move. No rush, he replied, voice dry. I haven't had enough of watching you suffer yet. How could I possibly leave with Wang Shuo while you're like this? The room seemed to grow colder. The air between them tightened, thick with things unsaid. Wu Suowei met his gaze then, something in him snapping. Then look all you want. Best make it satisfying while you're at it. His voice was bitter, but behind it was something else. Pain. Cheng narrowed his eyes. You have no idea how good it feels to see you like this. Still, Wu Suowei didn't answer. He turned away, silent again. But that silence was louder than any scream. A single tear began to slide down the bridge of his nose, falling slowly until it hit the desk with a soft, final sound. Cheng watched it fall. And though he'd come to hurt him, to harden his heart, that tear went straight through his chest. It hit a place he had tried to seal off. Still, he forced the words out. Cruel ones. Cold ones. Cry all you want. The more you cry, the happier I get. I came here just to see you cry. Wu Suowei shook slightly, struggling to keep it in. But he couldn't. You tricked people's feelings, Cheng added. Of course it hurts. No one's going to pity you. And that was the final blow. Wu Suowei's body gave out, and the sobs came harsh, messy, uncontrollable. The dam broke completely. He clutched at the desk to keep himself steady, but his knees buckled beneath the weight of it all. He sobbed until his voice cracked, until his throat burned, until there was nothing left in him but ache. Cheng stood there, frozen. Every cry felt like a slap to the face. Every tear reminded him that he wasn't angry, he was devastated. He couldn't watch any longer. He walked forward slowly, gently, and for the first time in what felt like forever, he opened his arms. He wrapped them around Wu Suowei, pulling him close, holding his shaking frame. One hand slid through his hair. The other cupped his damp, trembling face. And then, finally, Cheng's voice softened. It cracked with emotion. Wei, don't cry anymore. But Wu Suowei couldn't stop. He had held it in too long, bottled too much, hidden too well. Now it was spilling out, and there was no stopping it. Baby, please, no more tears. Cheng whispered, his own voice shaking. He pressed his forehead to Wu Suowei's as if trying to absorb the pain himself. I'm here, he whispered. I'm right here. Wu Suowei cried until he could barely breathe, until the world went blurry. And when he could no longer stand, when everything else gave way, he collapsed into Cheng's arms, the only shoulder he had left. Days later, Wu Suowei stood at his mother's funeral. The world around him felt muted. Muted colors. Muted sounds. Everything was gray. He didn't want to cry anymore. But the grief had its own rhythm, and he was powerless against it. He stepped toward the casket slowly, then whispered so quietly only the wind might have heard him. Mom, I will be a good son, I promise. But I'm sorry. His voice cracked. I can't marry a wife like you always dreamed for me. Because I've already fallen in love with Cheng. He paused, wiping away a tear before it could fall. If there's a next life, please be my mother again. I'll find you. I'll come back to you. Forever your little boy, Wu Suowei. He stood there for a moment longer, lips pressed tight, trying to be strong. But strength meant nothing when grief hit this deep. He turned slightly and felt someone watching him. Cheng. He had come despite everything. Suowei, he said gently, stepping closer. Don't cry. And with that one soft voice, Wu Suowei broke again. The pain he had tried to keep inside came rushing out. But this time, Cheng caught him before he could fall. He held him not like before, with walls between them, but truly held him, heart to heart. Wu Suowei clung to him like a lifeline, sobbing once again in the arms that had always made him feel safest. Their son, Da Bao, didn't fully understand at first. He hadn't realized that his mother wouldn't come home ever again. Not until Cheng sat down beside him and gently said something that finally made it real. And that's when Da Bao cried. Loud, angry, confused tears. He cried because he didn't know how else to process the emptiness. After that, everything reminded him of her. A meal, a smell, a TV commercial, and with each reminder came a storm of emotion. Da Bao's grief often turned into frustration. He lashed out, pushed people away, screamed without knowing why. But Cheng never left. He let him cry, let him scream, let him feel everything. He didn't punish the pain. He held space for it, because he knew what it meant to lose someone, and he knew what it meant to be held when the world breaks. Da Bao's attachment to Cheng grew stronger. He feared losing him too. So when Cheng saw how deep the wounds had become, he made a decision. He took Da Bao to Hawaii. A change of place, new air, somewhere to breathe. Not to erase the pain, but to let it settle. To remind him that life could still hold color. They spent quiet mornings by the ocean. A few smiles returned. Not many, but enough to believe healing was possible. Cheng had known all along that this pain would come. He knew Wu Suowei would crumble. He knew Da Bao would suffer. And that's why he came back. Not out of guilt, not out of pity, but because love doesn't walk away when things get hard. It stays, even when the person you love is breaking, even when you're breaking too. Because real love is showing up, even in silence, even in grief, even when all that's left to offer is your arms. And in Cheng's arms, Wu Suowei finally found something he thought he had lost forever: peace. And in the end, it wasn't the apology that brought healing. It wasn't the perfect words or promises. It was simply this one person staying. Cheng didn't leave, even after everything. Because sometimes, love doesn't look like fairy tales. Sometimes it looks like standing in the middle of someone else's storm and choosing not to run. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Tell me, would you take someone back? If they were the one who hurt you, but also the only one who held you when no one else stayed?